To be alone for great lengths of time can be one of the most soul-crushing experiences for an individual to ever go through. To be alone and hunted by beings that wish you harm is an experience that most would describe as the stuff of nightmares. This was the setting in which a young child found himself from the first moments of his life. The dark gods of chaos knew that he must be brought into their fold or destroyed, else he would become an eternal thorn in their collective sides. Unto the forest world of Caliban this son was given, and unto the beasts of the forest he was thrown. The child grew and learned quickly, as all of the Emperor's progeny did. The trees and beasts were his teachers, and only by wit and trial and error did he learn what was safe to eat and drink, and what he could kill. The boy became an apex predator in a world home to beasts that could tear a man apart with little effort. He had to. Within him was an inextinguishable survival instinct, not that of the prey species that fled at the slightest sign of danger. No, this was the instinct of one of those that sat atop the food chain. Those that knew that for themselves to live another day, each day had to be something else's last. Each task had become deliberate, economical, and efficient. No movement was wasted, no effort expended without purpose. The boy mastered his mind like he had mastered the forest and could give any task he chose his complete focus. Before long, the beasts of Caliban, touched by the warp though they were, knew to fear this new monster, a boy merely 10 years of age. Then they came. Creatures whose skin shone like moon atop hooved prey animals. From the safety of the trees, the boy observed them. They had killed one of the beasts of the forest and were making noises between themselves. They looked much like the boy did, but still different. The caution that he had ingrained within himself since his first moments of life bled away like grease under hot water. He wanted to know more about these strangers that were so much like him. Perhaps they could show him. The creature that the boy would come to know as Luther approached him using his hand to brush a lock of grimy blonde hair away from the boy's face, revealing emerald eyes the color of the forest. Luther could not have known it at the time, but he had just named the boy who would become the Lord of the First Legion. He had named him Lion L. Johnson. As with all the Primarchs, the young boy grew quickly in both wisdom and stature, and gained the favor of those around him. He was described as having a beautiful singing voice, and could mimic the call of any animal he had heard. But as it is with all Primarchs, he became most well known for his superlative skill as a warrior and as a strategist. Quickly rising through the ranks of the Order, his new adoptive family, his steadfast, quiet confidence and indomitable will garnered him a reputation that spread far and wide across Caliban, drawing recruits in numbers never before seen by the Order. With Luther as the face and the heart of the movement, and the Lion as its ruthless right hand, no longer did the common man need to live in fear. At the instruction of the Order, the old traditions that reserved battle for nobility were halted. Although this departure from the old ways caused a wave of dissent amongst the ranks of the more conservative knights, the Order was rewarded with swollen barracks all year round. Within a decade's time, Lion L. Johnson and Luther had seen the Order grow from a small force into a grand army, and the desire for a better life for all of Caliban's inhabitants was on the rise. The two leaders of the Order decided it was time to rid their world of the scourge of the beasts. With blade and torch, the Knights of Caliban swept across the forest world, slaying hundreds of the abominations and perishing in their own hundreds with each pelt taken. Though many of the surviving warriors began to grow weary of the incessant slaughter, the Lion remained steadfast and resolute in his purpose. To him, leaving such a monumental task unfinished would serve only as a waste of lives his men had so bravely given in pursuit of a dream that they themselves would never live out. Eventually, the last beast was slain, and Caliban knew peace for the first time in its history. It was during this bloody campaign that Luther, who had long been considered the greatest of a generation, began to see that the people had found a new being to idolize. The Lion cared little for the praise and adulation that was heaped on him by the common folk, but begrudgingly accepted their accolades, unaware that this was planting the seeds of jealousy in his adoptive father. In truth, it was a wound dealt in ignorance. For Lion L. Johnson did not see the spark of pride that burned within his adoptive father ignite into jealousy in the face of his triumphs, a wound that would fester in the years to follow. It is possible that, had the Emperor of Mankind not arrived on Caliban, that Luther would have forgotten his jealousy in time, choosing instead to make peace with his adopted son. Alas, the galaxy will never know what might have been. For from the skies of Caliban came giants in power armor, armed with better firearms and finely crafted blades. They had informed the Lion that they were merely a vanguard force for the Emperor, the ruler of all mankind, and that this Emperor was on his way to greet the grim Lord of the Order. Having just freed their world from one form of tyranny, the knights under Luther and the Lion were extremely suspicious of this warlord from the stars. And though Lionel Johnson impressed upon them to use caution and to wait until they knew more, a contingency plan to assassinate the Emperor had begun to take shape. Upon meeting the Emperor of Mankind, the Lion quickly pledged fealty to the Imperium, recognizing that his destiny was far greater than he had previously thought. The giant soldiers that had landed on the planet were a special breed of warrior known as Astartes, or Space Marines. And these particular soldiers were members of a force known as the First Legion. L. Johnson was told by the Emperor that he was a being known as a Primarch, a gene-forged creation of the Master of Mankind himself, and was being given command of this legion of transhuman demigods. Upon taking command of this superlative fighting force, the Lion immediately reorganized it to more closely resemble the structure of a knightly order that he grew up with, forming the first Hexagrammaton, and the order's penchant for secrecy and covert ritual found its way into the new legion's doctrine. Though the plot to assassinate the Emperor never came to fruition, thanks to the bravery of a young knight named Zahariel, the seed of suspicion that had been planted before the Master of Mankind's arrival had firmly taken root in the elder Calibanite knights and flowered into the thorny vines of mistrust and malcontent. Chief among these silent dissenters was none other than Luther himself. By this time, he was no longer looked up to as a father figure or even a brother in arms. No. By Luther's reckoning, he had been firmly passed by, his voice barely more important than a subordinate's. Gone were the days when the boy he had found in the forest would ask him the best way to hold a sword, or how to say something to make his intentions clear. This was the time of Lion L. Johnson, the Knight King of Caliban, a slayer of beasts and now lord of the premier force of the Legiones Astartes. Luther was quickly being left behind. Leaving the forests of Caliban, the newly minted Dark Angels Legion took to the stars from whence they came in even greater numbers than when they had arrived. The Lion, Luther, and many Calibanite knights had undergone the procedures to become Astartes or pseudo-Astartes themselves, following the Lion to prosecute the Emperor's Great Crusade. Over the course of this Great Crusade, the Dark Angels undertook many campaigns, one of which being the brutal Rangdan Xenocides. So terrible were the losses that the Dark Angels Legion suffered that other legions such as the Lunar Wolves, Ultramarines, and even the Iron Hands Legion began to overtake them in prestige and numbers. Nevertheless, the Lion never lost the sense of pride he held in his legion, and the sense of pride he felt for himself, often considering himself to be a breed apart from his brothers. In one instance, this resulted in a call to humility from the most unlikely of people, his brother Fulgrim, the Phoenician, as seen in Rogal Dorn, the Emperor's Crusader.
A sensible proposition, except that 7th Legion battalions have already cleared orbit over the northern strike area, and we're ready to begin mass deployment, not just an insertion attack. My 40,000 legionaries hitting the ground will break their resolve within minutes, forestalling any need for wider commitment and risk.
Unacceptable! We have not bloodied ourselves in the void to relent at the edge of orbit. My ships are breaking through toward the equatorial defense stations, which will eliminate the threat to both your attack and that of the Phoenicians' legion. My knights will be first on the surface, but I assure you that we will share the battle honors.
The Tri-D projector stuttered as another feed came online. Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children greeted them with a brief smile.
Apologies for the delay in my participation. I believe my equerry has been fighting a valiant vanguard action on my behalf. We are at an impasse. But as the most experienced Legion commander here, I feel that
I have waged war as long as any of my Primarch brothers. If you see fault in my strategy, say thus. Do not hide behind a veil of seniority. For what reason should the first not abide by their name?
Fulgrim's manner did not change. His features set in polite attention through the lion's outburst. When it was done, the Phoenician pointedly turned his gaze to Rogal Dorn.
I feel that the Imperial Fists should lead the attack. The Phalanx is by far the largest vessel here, even bigger than our Gloriana-class ships, Brother Lion. As a display of Imperial authority, its arrival and the descent of 40,000 legionaries sends a message that cannot be ignored. Rogal is entirely correct in his assessment.
To split our attack is to risk a harder drop for my Legion and yours. The loss of momentum could be disastrous to a swift victory if the inhabitants are not so impressed, as you say.
Fulgrim turned the intensity of his attention to the lion, slender fingers steepling to his chin in a pose of respectful thought.
My brother, there is a very important difference between conquest and compliance. We are all warlords here, but more than that, we are the Emperor's Primarchs. When he dispatched us on this venture, it was with the explicit task of bringing worlds to compliance, however that is achieved. Societies broken by war need fixing, requiring resources that are stretched as the Great Crusade continues to expand into the furthest reaches.
That was my thought. We must give the enemy opportunity and encouragement to capitulate. Our reports showed that their fleet was their greatest strength. Without it, their resistance will be short-lived. I have not fought as many campaigns as Fulgrim, and few have been bloodless, but as the newest member of our Brotherhood, perhaps your perspective has not yet widened from the wars of your homeworld, Brother Lion.
All eyes, those of Primarch and Legionary alike, were drawn to the lion, whose lip curled and brows knotted. For a few seconds he said nothing, one hand moving to the pommel of a great sword at the waist of his ebon-black warplate. The touch of it appeared to reassure the Primarch of the First, and he straightened a little, the tension flowing from him just as his lion's mane cloak hung from his shoulders.
Forgive my impetuous words, my brothers. I meant no offense. And if my eagerness to prosecute the Emperor's will has caused such, then I apologize. You are correct. I lead a legion of the Emperor as I would a company of knights, but it is a far greater power I now wield. On Caliban, an opponent would not be undone by the mere unsheathing of a blade. But the galaxy at large is not Caliban.
We are here to unite humankind, not enslave it. Some may only come under the threat of the blade, but others will join freely.
The weapons of the Dark Angels were greater than all other legions, for their armories were flush with every manner of implement for the destruction of the Emperor's enemies. Ancient horrors of old night, retained from the Unification Wars of Terror, priceless suits of unique Terminator armor, and even relics from the Dark Age of technology, including the Exindio-class battle automata. These giant battle robots were described as a maelstrom of churning claws and gouts of arcane flame and radiation blasts. Unlike the clumsy automatons of the Mechanicum of Mars, these death machines are of strictly Terran design, being, in truth, leashed and enslaved abominable intelligence. The Dark Angels kept these mechanical nightmares under lock and key and under constant surveillance for signs of rebellion. Even if one of these ancient machines were to break free of its captors, it could spell the doom of millions. The lion was nothing if not stubborn to a fault. Often this resolute attitude would result in him getting in his own way, his detractors capitulating to his overwhelming personality. Not so for Leman Russ, the Wolf King of Fenris. When the lion broke his word in the name of expediency by killing the planetary ruler of Dulan, that Russ himself had marked for death, the wrath of the Primarch of the 6th Legion burned as hot as a Fenrisian winter runs cold. After bearing one too many insults from the lion, Russ let his fury get the better of him, and the two brothers fought. Their duel was long and bloody, taking longer than any mortal men could last without collapsing, and destroying the palace of the dead planetary ruler in the process. Eventually, when the demigods were at their limits, bones fractured, armor damaged to the point of breakage, and enough blood spilled between them to drown a man, Leman Russ laughed. He laughed like he had never laughed before, his howls echoing across the ruined walls of the palace. What was the purpose of all of this? After all, they were both sons of the same father and generals of the same army. In light of the foolishness on display, what was there to do but laugh at the pointlessness of it all? He never saw the lion's fist that knocked him unconscious, breaking his skull in the process. This battle, while devastating for both Primarchs involved, eventually led to a bond of brotherhood between the Marines of each legion. Even to this very day, whenever the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels meet, an honor duel is held between chosen champions of each chapter in remembrance of their fathers. After the triumph at Ulanor, the greatest battle seen thus far against the green-skinned menace, the Emperor revealed to his Primarch sons that he would be stepping down from the Crusade. Instead of striding alongside his sons and soldiers on the field of battle, he would be returning to Terra, the cradle of humanity, to work on a project of utmost secrecy. While the Primarchs and Astartes were crestfallen to lose the Master of Mankind, the Emperor decreed that one of the Primarchs, Horus Lupercal, then Primarch of the Lunar Wolves, would be elevated to the new position of War Master. With this new mantle of responsibility, Horus would have all the authority of the Emperor of Mankind himself when it came to matters of war. All forces, Primarchs, and Astartes would be his to command, and the conquest of the galaxy would be prosecuted at his word. While the newly appointed War Master was positively received by many, the Lion felt that he had been passed over, and that he would have been a better pick for the position. Nevertheless, the Lord of the First begrudgingly accepted Horus's new status during a conversation with his father, the Emperor, as seen in Lionel Johnson, Lord of the First.
You were not the first of my sons to reclaim a place at my side. But your tally of victories is second to no other. Even Horus looks upon them with envy. Horus inspires. Magnus enlightens. Lorgar illuminates. Roboute raises an Imperium in miniature that celebrates his name and yours. I have left as many worlds behind me as any two of my brothers combined. But I fear that darkness and ash will be the legacy I leave to your Imperium.
The Emperor considered long, as he often did before giving an answer.
In the time of the Egypta, there was an empress named Hatshepsut. By all accounts of her that survive, she was an equitable and proficient ruler by the standards of her time. She rebuilt her land in the wake of war and occupation, erecting great monuments and bringing prosperity to her people. She reassembled the Egypta's navy, using it to re-establish their old empire, and launched military campaigns against the nations who had once been their oppressors.
A legacy whose parallels are not hard to see.
And yet, those who came after did all within their power to ensure she would have no legacy. Her name was chiseled from every monument, her every deed and triumph stricken from public record. Even her body was removed from its royal tomb.
Why, if her reign was so equitable?
Because those who succeeded her desired it. Because sometimes what comes before is too troublesome to be paved over in rockcrete, to amend with a monument to compliance or a golden aquila on an imperial flag. Sometimes it is enough only that it be destroyed, that no trace of it but darkness and ash be left to endure.
And yet history still remembers this empress.
Emperor Thutmose III did not have the Dark Angels. It is a pity that your campaigns kept you from the triumph,
said the Emperor, referring to Horus Lupercal's ascension to War Master.
Your presence was missed by your brothers. Horus, in particular, spoke to me of his regret.
He knows that I would have attended had I been able.
You are troubled.
The Imperium celebrates, but its triumph is empty. The galaxy is not won because Horus has his great victory.
Recall my words to you. Ulanor is just another victory.
Then why the pageantry?
Some men demand such pomp.
They cannot accept the end of one era and the commencement of another without an occasion by which to mark it and give it meaning. Laurels must be given, honors and fair titles invented so that they may be bestowed upon favored generals. Some men need recognition.
The lion felt the Emperor behold him, his firstborn son.
Some men do not.
During the compliance of the world of Sarosh, the lion, much like his father, would experience an assassination attempt of his own. Not wanting to join the Imperium, the Saroshi nobles had a nuclear bomb on a shuttle being used to meet with the Primarch upon his flagship, the Invincible Reason. This attempt on Lionel Johnson's life was only foiled because Luther and Zahariel happened to be in the hangar inspecting the very shuttle that the Saroshi nobles arrived on. At this time, Luther's jealousy nearly got the better of him. Despite Zahariel's pleading, he continued to hesitate. This could be the chance to take back the glory that was rightfully his. Without the lion in the way, perhaps Luther could become the leader of the Dark Angels once again. This could be the chance for Sir Luther of Caliban to show his quality. The thought left him as quickly as it had arrived. What was he doing? If he did nothing, then not only would the lion die, but himself as well, and hundreds of Calibanite Astartes. With the help of Zahariel, the two were able to jettison the shuttle into the cold void of space. However, the ensuing explosion would cause great damage to the Invincible Reason, and would kill several dozen crew members. The lion was furious, and in his fury, he questioned Luther as to how something like this could have happened. Unsatisfied with the answers Luther provided, the lion made the decision to split the Legion down the middle, and sent all Dark Angels of Calibanite descent back home, along with Luther and Zahariel. While this was officially to have Luther raise a strong reserve of Dark Angels to ensure that the Legion remained at full force, Luther himself could only view it as exile. Much like how the Primarchs felt abandoned by their father, the Emperor, Luther and the Calibanite-born Dark Angels were being abandoned by their father in turn. The Horus Heresy set the galaxy aflame and tore the Imperium of Man asunder. Half of the Primarchs and their legions threw their lot in with the new Warmaster, Horus Lupercal. However, not all of the traitors openly declared for the arch-traitor, at least not at first. After securing powerful siege weapons from the world of Diamat, the Lion turned them over to Perturabo for safekeeping. Tragically, Perturabo had already turned traitor unbeknownst to the Loyalists, and using the weapons the Lion had given him, would take part in the horrific Istvan drop site massacre. Horus knew that he had no hope of defeating the remaining Loyalist legions if they presented themselves as a cohesive, unified force. He would have to separate them and destroy them piecemeal, leaving the prize of terror for last. To this end, he directed the Night Lord's Legion to the eastern fringes of the galaxy to prosecute the Thramas Crusade, a bloody 3-year genocide across many Loyalist worlds. At the invitation of Conrad Kurz, Lionel Johnson journeyed to the barren world of Seguelsa, where the Night Haunter attempted to regale the Lord of the First with a prophecy about the Dark Angel's future. The Lion was unimpressed and losing patience with his brother's theatrics, and their meeting eventually broke down into vicious single combat. The Hunter fought the Haunter in a storm of speed and steel, neither Primarch able to score a decisive blow on the other. While Conrad was cursed with the gift of foresight and could predict the Lion's strikes, the Primarch of the First's instincts were so sharp that they bordered on precognition themselves. Sword strikes that appeared to move one way would suddenly veer off to the side, confounding the Night Haunter's predictions. Their duel ended in a bloody stalemate, Kurz impaled through the spine by the sword of Corswain, who was nearby, and the Lion suffering from a lacerated throat. Both Primarchs were dragged away by their sons to lick their wounds and plan their next moves. The Thramas Crusade continued following the pattern of Lionel Johnson hunting his murderous brother across the stars, always one step behind the Night Haunter. After all, how was he supposed to catch a man that could see the future? After learning of a device known as the T'Chulcha engine that could help him coordinate much safer and faster warp jumps, the hunt for Conrad Kurz resumed. Eventually, during one of these jumps, the Invincible Reason fell victim to a demonic incursion. Discovering that these creatures of the warp were particularly vulnerable to the attacks of Psychers, the Lion reinstated the Dark Angel's Librarius, ignoring the Edict of Nicaea, set by the Emperor of Mankind himself, much to the dismay of one particular commander, as seen in The Lion.
Asmodeus, Did your powers destroy the enemy?
The former librarian said nothing, but looked up at the Primarch and nodded.
Is this true?
The lion stooped low to lay a hand on the shoulder of Asmodeus.
Were your powers capable of harming our attackers?
From the warp they come, and with the power of the warp they can be punished again.
He met the Primarch's gaze for a moment, then looked away.
Brother Nemiel is right, my liege. I have broken the oath I swore.
A grave crime, and one that I will be sure to prosecute properly when the current situation has been resolved.
The lion looked at Nemiel.
There are 2 others of the Librarium aboard, Hasfael and Alberain. Bring them here.
This is a mistake, my liege. The abominations that attack us, these Nephilah, are a conjunction of sorceries. I swore an oath also to uphold the Edict of Nicaea. To unleash further sorcery will endanger us even more. Think again, my liege.
I have issued an order, Brother Nemiel.
One that I cannot follow.
My authority is absolute.
The Edict of Nicaea was issued by the Emperor. My liege, there is no higher authority.
Enough!
The lion's roar was so loud it caused Corswain's autosensors to dampen his hearing, as if he were in proximity of an explosion. The lion moved, and a split second later, a cracked, skull-faced helm was spinning through the dull, glowing lights of the Strategium, cutting a bloody arc through the air. Nemiel's headless corpse clattered to the floor as the lion held up his hand, pieces of ceramite embedded in the fingertips of his gore-spattered gauntlet. While the death of Nemiel left a lasting impression on the lion and his sons present, there were more pressing matters at hand. A greater demon of Tzeentch had broken into real space and was threatening to bring a sudden stop to everything that the Dark Angels had fought for. This demon's name was Kairos Fateweaver, and it claimed to be able to see the future and the past in equal measure. The demon attempted to convert the Primarch to chaos, but the heart of the Night King of Caliban could not be swayed. After the battle, the greatest servant of Tzeentch found itself banished back to the warp with the lion's blade through its heart. Using the aforementioned T'Chulcha engine, the Lord of the First was finally able to get the drop on the Night Lords. After dueling his brother for a second time, the greatest beast of Caliban left the Primarch of the Night Lords in a coma. Though he was recovered by his sons, the Night Haunter soon boarded the Invincible Reason and began to reap a bloody butcher's bill aboard the Gloriana-class battleship. Though the lion hunted his brother for the next 16 weeks, he would never catch him. The betrayal at Calth not only crippled the Ultramarines, but it also unleashed the Ruined Storm, a warp storm of truly breathtaking size. With this warp anomaly in place, Loyalist forces could not traverse the warp, due to the Astronomicon being completely obscured. The First Legion as a whole seemed dead in the water until a pure light shone through the warp, illuminating Macragge, homeworld of his brother Roboute Guilliman. Not wasting this opportunity, the Dark Angels and their Primarch made for the homeworld of the Ultramarines, with Conrad Kurz still stalking the bowels of the Invincible Reason. Upon arriving at Macragge, the Lion and Guilliman were at odds nearly immediately. Guilliman wanted to take charge of his home, and the Lion staunchly believed that he knew best on almost all matters. To add another variable to an already complex situation, the Night Haunter was about to do something that would reveal a side of the Lion that none had ever seen before. During a feast to strengthen relations between the Ultramarines and their Dark Angels guests, the drop pod bays of the Invincible Reason opened up, releasing their bellicose cargo into the skies above Macragge, as seen in the Unremembered Empire.
Great terror. I felt it. I felt it there. The surge of minds. Hundreds of minds suddenly alert with anticipation. What did you do, my lord? What did you just do?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
The Lion began, but his words were cut off by the sudden chiming of multiple alert monitors, swiftly followed up by a blare of palace klaxons. Guilliman threw back his chair and stood up.
Report!
Mass orbital launch. The Dark Angels flagship is just... It has just launched a full drop pod assault on Macragge, Civitas.
What?
Assault swarm confirmed by all stations.
Guilliman's sword was in his fist and aimed tip first across the table at the Lion.
Is this your treachery?
No!
The Lion did not flinch despite the blade hovering at his throat. Some of his officers had drawn swords at the threat to their master. He waved them back urgently.
The grid does not lie. Drop pod swarm from your ship. Inbound.
You attacked me? I swear not! Stand down! Someone explain this!
Signal is confirmed. The Invincible Reason has launched a drop pod assault.
Condemned from their own lips.
This is a mistake. A malfunction. A mislaunch.
How exactly do you accidentally launch a drop pod assault, brother? This is a malfunction, I swear so! Accident or not, the pods will not reach the city. Our shields are raised. Our batteries will have full lock. We will burn them out of the sky.
The lion swallowed hard and stared directly at Guilliman.
This is a mistake, brother. A terrible mistake, I swear it. I implore you, spare my warriors.
Your warriors?
400 drop pods. A great number of battle brothers. Please, Roboute, please. This is a mistake, an error.
All this time, while we talked of the future, your drop pods were loaded and ready with assault troops? What do you suggest I do, brother? Lower the city shields?
Yes, drop your shields and allow the pods to make controlled landings.
Less than a minute remaining, my Primarch.
You cannot open the city to them, Lord. It is too great a risk. You must fire and eliminate them.
Please, I did not authorize this.
But it is an attack force you had prepared and held in waiting.
A precaution. You would have done the same.
We must fire now, while they're still in optimum range. You must give the order.
Please, Roboute.
Guilliman glanced sidelong at the librarian Praeto.
Your brother is close to me, but I can see enough to tell he is telling the truth. Perhaps not the whole truth, but enough of it. He did not authorize this attack. He is horrified by it.
Guilliman looked back at the lion.
Hold fire! Power down! Lower the shields and let them land!
My lord!
Do it!
Guilliman returned his gaze to the Primarch of the First.
Do not make me regret this, brother.
The drop pods had not only brought a fresh wave of mistrust betwixt the Lion and Guilliman, indeed they had brought something much worse. While the Invincible Reason was one of the largest ships in all of humanity's navy, it was still an effective means of containing its passengers, especially ones that were better left sequestered. The planet of Macragge, by comparison, was an infinitely larger playground for the nightmare that was Conrad Kurz. Working together, Roboute, Guilliman, and the Lion managed to corner him several times, but the Night Haunter was always one step ahead. To further complicate matters, a recently resurrected Vulcan was also rampaging around the area, hell-bent on killing Kurz himself. Eventually, Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels Legion, would also arrive at Macragge, drawn from Cygnus Prime by the light of the Pharos beacon. Discussions were held between the Lion, Roboute, and Sanguinius regarding the steps they would take to ensure the Imperium's survival. As far as they knew, Terra may be completely gone along with their father. Not accepting that this could be the end of humanity's greatest effort, the three brothers resolved to form Imperium Secundus, with Sanguinius installed as Imperator Regis, Guilliman as Lord Warden, and the Lion as Lord Protector. A title with responsibilities similar to that of a War Master. Lion L. Johnson had finally gotten his wish. With Kurz still at large, and with bodies stacking up by the day, the first order of business for the new triumvirate of rulers was to capture and pacify their animal of a brother. Rebellions were cropping up all over the world, and it was likely that the murderous Primarch was behind their proliferation. After putting the entirety of Macragge under martial law, and deploying the fearsome Dreadwing to put down rebels at various key locations around the planet, Lionel Johnson, the Hunter, finally bagged his quarry. A third duel erupted between the two brothers that ended with Kurz's back being broken over the knee of the man who served as the template on which all of his younger brothers were modeled, an echo of what Leman Russ had done to Magnus the Red years before. Thus, the trial of Conrad Kurz began. Lionel Johnson insisted that Kurz needed to die for them to be rid of him once and for all. But Sanguinius and Roboute Guilliman both prevented him from taking the Night Haunter's head as a trophy. The Lion stubbornly and angrily insisted that the only thing that would bring peace was the death of Conrad Kurz. But after being banished from Imperium Secundus and having his sword broken, he returned to the Invincible Reason to brood. His thoughts drifted to his once adoptive father, Luther, and he reflected that his exile of the man that had taken him from the forest so long ago may have been the wrong choice. Suddenly, a single, awful, wonderful thought crystallized in his mind, and he raced off to the chamber of the Tucholcha engine. Arriving in front of the piece of ancient arcane technology, he ordered it to teleport him back to the throne room of Sanguinius. Arriving not a moment too soon, for the Red Angel was about to execute Kurz, L. Johnson begged for his younger brother to stay his hand, if only for a moment. He explained to both of his brothers that Conrad Kurz's vision of the future had shown him his own death at the hands of an assassin sent by their father, which meant that their father had to be alive to be able to send an assassin in the first place. Taking custody of Kurz, the Lion and his two brothers made to breach the Ruin Storm. While neither Guilliman or the Lion were able to breach the turbulence of the Imperium, Sanguinius's fleet was able to make it through to the throne world. Despair and frustration descended upon the Night King of Caliban as his navigators mournfully informed him that the Astronomicon, the symbol of the Emperor's psychic might and the lighthouse by which all interstellar travel used to guide themselves through the warp, had gone out. Believing that the war had been lost and that Horus, the arch-traitor, now sat atop the Golden Throne, he resolved that he would not leave a galaxy for Horus to rule.
The Dread Wing will ride with you, sire. We shall let the galaxy burn.
With the Astronomicon gone, the Lion was forced to use the Tucholcha engine to guide his way, much to the dismay of his men. In his nihilistic melancholy, he made for the traitors' homeworlds, using the excuse that they would surely withdraw from the skies of terror to defend them. In a journey that later became known as the Passage of Angels, the Lion saw Exterminatus enacted upon the worlds of Chemos and Barbarus, the homeworlds of Fulgrim and Mortarion respectively, something to take his mind off his grief. Eventually, he found Corvus Corax and Leman Russ mustering on Deliverance, demanding to know where the Raven Guard's Primarch had been during the most important battles of the war. Anything to take his mind off this grief. Corax retorted that he could not risk the complete annihilation of his legion, and would continue to jealously guard his son's safety, not committing them to a wasteful act of spite. Russ, however, did join his brother on his vengeance crusade. After drinking their fill of traitor blood, both the Wolf and the Lion made for terror to pick up the pieces of their shattered empire. Not soon enough. Lion L. Johnson arrived on a planet covered in ashes, a palace with broken down walls and a bleeding corpse upon his father's throne. In a few short years, 9 of his brothers had turned traitor, and 2 of his remaining loyal siblings lay dead, slain at the hands of the arch-traitor Horus and the now demon prince Fulgrim. His resignation to return to the throne world was quickly replaced by a desperation to return home to Caliban. Bloodied and tired of war, the Dark Angel's Legion arrived above the surface of their father's home. Soon they would be reunited with their brothers who they had been separated from nearly a decade ago. They would all be together, and after a time of resting and rearming, they would be able to take the fight to the new traitors. And then, the Void caught fire. Salvo after punching salvo slammed into the arriving fleet. Taking emergency maneuvers, the fleet pulled out of range of the planetary defense batteries. A passing merchant ship informed the Lion that Luther, his brother, his father, had taken control of the planet and assumed authority over the massive Astartes reserve force on the planet's surface. L. Johnson, assuming that this was the work of the thrice-damned forces of chaos, ordered the systematic bombing of Caliban so that no stone would be left upon another. Chaos would not take his home, even if it had to be destroyed to ensure that directive. As the planet buckled under relentless bombardment, Caliban welcomed back her wayward son with ash and smoke. The boy that had grown up in her forests cleansed her of tainted monsters and given her people hope for the future had returned. He would not rest in the shade of her trees or drink from her rivers nor eat the fruits of her vines. He had returned as a destroyer and a bringer of death. Indeed, for the first time in decades, a beast walked the land, and his name was Lion, son of the forest. Battering aside the last offenders in the fortress monastery of the Order named Aldaruk in the Old Tongue, the Lion faced a man that looked like he felt. No being, transhuman or otherwise, could stand against them. They could not be reasoned with, and they could not be swayed from their courses. The clash between Luther and the Lion was like nothing the world had ever seen, nor would ever see again. Luther, having drunk deep from the poisonous well of chaos, had been elevated to a champion of the ruinous powers, and stood on equal footing with his Primarch's son. The speed of their swings was as lightning, and each clash of their blades sounded of thunder. All around them, the bombardment continued to break the surface of the planet. In the end, Luther could match the lion well enough, but he found that he could not be overcome by merely sword play alone. Gathering a newly found psychic might, Luther unleashed a bolt of energy so terrible, so potent, that Lionel Johnson, Primarch of the 1st Legion of Astartes, the Night King of Caliban, fell to the ground with a wound fatal even for a being such as him. He was no more. In that moment, the scales fell from Luther's eyes as he realized what he had done. Unwilling to keep fighting, he collapsed to the floor next to the man he had worked to free his world with. Neither man realized that a second heresy just played out in miniature upon the now shattered surface of Caliban. In a cruel twist of fate, the lion had become the most like his father, the Emperor of mankind. When the Dark Angels arrived on the shards of the planet's crust that held the fortress monastery of Alderuk, they found Luther, who had gone mad with grief. Their Primarch was nowhere to be seen, but amidst the incessant babble coming from Luther's lips, they learned that the lion had been taken by the Watchers in the Dark, an enigmatic race of robed creatures that are shrouded in the warp as much as they are shrouded in mystery. Luther was sequestered to a deep dungeon in the bowels of the Rock, as the Shard of Caliban came to be called, languishing in stasis so that the Dark Angels could question him at their leisure. Unbeknownst to the galaxy at large, and even to the Astartes of the Dark Angels themselves, the lion had indeed been taken by the Watchers in the Dark and placed in an even deeper dungeon on the very same rock that held Luther. He was kept a secret that only the Watchers knew. The only other being with this knowledge being the Emperor of mankind, who sees all from his golden throne. For the next 10,000 years, the Dark Angels pursued a vicious war against their traitorous brothers who had survived the destruction of Caliban, dubbing them the Fallen. No longer the noble knights of the Great Crusade, the Dark Angels of the 41st millennium act more like a secret police force or a state-sponsored death squad. Fearing censure from the Imperium at large should their secret schism be discovered, the chapter does all it can to make sure each and every one of their fallen brothers is captured and made to repent for their actions, or be killed and quietly disposed of. The Dreamer wakes up and sees his hands for the first time. He knows not how long he has sat here, but he suspects it has been a very long time. He hears a sound that pleases his ears. He rises to his feet and begins walking, slowly at first, and then running, hoping to find the source of these notes of music. Yes, that is what these sounds are called. The hunter comes upon a river, where he sees an old man sitting in a boat. He weighs out toward the boat, but is immediately told to return to shore by a diminutive creature in brown robes. He should not do that, it says. He is not strong enough. The hunter asks the creature what he should do, and is told to follow his nature. He smells something that smells like corruption. He follows the smell until the trees begin to change. He is no longer where he was, but he is not sure where he is. He happens upon a man. He knows this man. This man's name is Zabriel, one of his sons, and if this is Zabriel, then he himself must be. Lion L. Johnson asks Zabriel many things. Where are they? When are they? Does the Imperium still exist? What about his other sons? Zabriel answers what he can, but there are gaps in his knowledge. Some time passes and the lion learns about the forest place that he walked out of. He learns that he can enter with focus and exit in places where he desires to go. Gathering to himself more of his formerly fallen sons, the lion forms a warband of loyalist Dark Angels. Fallen no longer, they are risen. Accompanying them is a small militia of mortal humans known as the Lion Guard Auxilia. The lion has not been idle since his return, obtaining a new sword named Fealty, and being gifted the Emperor's personal shield. He has been granted a new role in the galaxy. No longer a destroyer of the Emperor's enemies, he is now a protector of those lost to the Emperor's light in Imperium Nihilus. However, the forces of chaos still blight the galaxy, even 10,000 years after Horus's defeat, as seen when the lion comes across a squad of mutated Chaos Astartes in the Lion, Son of the Forest.
Who do you serve?
I serve myself. The fur-clad commander whose back the lion broke was still twitching. Zabriel walked over to him and aimed his bolt pistol at the fallen heretic's head.
Wait!
The lion crosses the floor and glares down at his adversary.
What must I do to rid myself of this malady that impedes me?
Impedes you? You slaughtered my best, broke my back as though I were a child. What manner of being are you that you consider yourself impeded when you can still do such things?
The lion reaches up and removes his helmet. This is the first time he will declare himself in 10,000 years, and he will not do so behind a ceramite faceplate.
I am Lionel Johnson, Primarch of the Dark Angels and son of the Emperor.
The heretic's eyes go wide and there is no doubt in them. He smiles and begins to laugh, exposing teeth that are mere jagged points.
There is no malady at work here, my lord. You simply got old.
The lion's breathing turns heavy, pursued by the cold bite of truth. Zabriel's bolt pistol speaks once more, and then there is silence. The lion has much to learn about the galaxy at large, and about himself. Now is a time for introspection, and to face his inner demons. As the lion encounters a supernatural creature imitating his siblings, as seen in The Lion, Son of the Forest. The lion's jaw dropped when the figure stepped out into the gentle mist-shrouded light. Blonde hair so much like his own, but tangled and part braided, and not faded with age, ornate armor so much like the lion's own, but the grey of death in winter rather than the black of night. The ferocity that lurks within the lion's heart is mirrored here, but worn on the surface in the flashing blue eyes, and the elongated canine teeth that are exposed as the upper lip lifts in a snarl. Relief, anger, joy, and alarm all swell within the lion's heart.
Leman Russ.
Hello, traitor.
Leman launched himself forward with his hands reaching out for the lion's throat. The lion wasted no more time with words. He had fought Leman Russ before, and he knows that such things only end when the Wolf King is either incapacitated or chooses to stop of his own accord. He sidesteps Russ's lunge and then swings a fist. He knocked Russ unconscious once on Delan, but his brother was laughing then. Russ is not laughing now. He swats the blow aside and slams a punch of his own into the lion's chest, his face twisted in a rage. The foolish see the savagery of the Space Wolves and dismiss it as nothing more than that, but the lion knows better. The lion meets him toe-to-toe, furious concentration against concentrated fury.
Traitor! You know that is not true!
Then why does it bother you so?
It was not Russ's voice the lion heard, and the shape now rising to its feet stands taller than Russ ever did. A mighty figure encased in a massive suit of Terminator plate is now where the Wolf King stood a moment before, Horus Lupercal.
You are dead! Russ's fate I did not know for sure, but you are dead! This is some warp trickery!
Now it is Horus's turn to stagger, raising his other hand to shield his face as he does so. When he lowers it again, his features have changed. His skin is paler, and cables snake out of its skull into his armor. Perturabo.
Well anticipated. A shame you lacked that foresight on Tiamat.
You might at least have found a brother for whom I ever cared!
And if you had been smarter, you would have seen it coming.
The crimson-haired giant is as tall on one knee as the lion is standing, and his hand closes around the lion's skull in an agonizing grip. The lion manages to prise the fingers apart, but Magnus's other hand punches him full in the face and sends him flying backwards.
No, I know that you are a fraud! Magnus could never hope to hit that hard!
The Emperor never trusted you.
Dorn lashed out with two quick punches. The lion should have been able to dodge them both, but he is starting to feel the effects of being repeatedly battered by his brothers, or at least by a being which is mimicking them, and the second lands flush.
That is why he sent you far away to the galaxy's darkest corners while keeping me close.
Dorn continued, reaching out to grab and strangle. The lion seizes one of his arms and pivots, throwing Dorn over his shoulder and dumping the Praetorian of Terror onto his back.
You think he trusted you with his secrets? I know secrets you could never hope to imagine, firstborn.
Arms seized the lion from behind, wrapping around his neck and hauling him around in a half circle. But he reached up to prise them loose and dropped down onto one knee to throw his attacker off again.
You never did have the stomach for a fair fight!
A fair fight!
Angron roared, throwing the lion off. He piles forward in a furious rush of blows that have all of Russ's savagery but none of the control. The lion gets back up and tries to throw a punch of his own, but it's caught in a hand of metal.
At least I know which of my legion deserved to die.
They all did!
And I knew that. They called me a fiend because I terrorized worlds. But you just killed them. My reputation made planets capitulate when they heard my approach. But you just dropped from the sky unannounced and burned the very soil to ash. Why is it that you are a hero and I am a villain simply because I left some wretches alive to talk about me?
The lion manages to get his hands on Kurz's and wrenches the claws out, then staggers away. When he turns, the Night Haunter is nowhere to be seen.
I am not a hero. I did what was required of me by the master of mankind, the man I believed knew best. I was a necessary part of his plan to unify and save humanity.
So noble.
You are a villain because you enjoyed what you did, and you did it even when you had been ordered not to.
Perhaps Father did his work too well.
You can only blame the Emperor because you refuse to take responsibility for your own actions. You like to say that you could see the future, but you let yourself be a slave to it instead of forging your own path. Father has not failed yet. Not while I am still alive to protect this galaxy.
You know nothing of which you speak.
Perhaps. But you are long dead. And I am through bandying words with ghosts.
Most recently, the Lion has reunited with his loyalist sons, the modern Dark Angels. During the invasion of the Rock by Vashtor the Archifane, the Lion arrived in time to save Dante, the chapter master of the Blood Angels, from his corrupted brother Angron. The duel between the ascended demon Primarch and the newly returned Lion was a sight that will be recorded in the annals of Imperial history for all time. After being pursued relentlessly by the blood-starved beast, the Lion managed to land a single strike on Angron's throat. Never one to work in half measures, the Lion proceeded to decapitate his traitorous brother with the edge of the Emperor's shield, bringing it down over and over again until the deed was done. In the grim darkness of the far future, the Knight of Nihilus stalks the stars. No longer a destroyer, he is the guardian of all those who would ask for his protection. The Primarch is the Imperium's greatest warrior, and a man of focus, commitment, and sheer bloody will. Only time will tell whether he will be able to unite the peoples of Imperium Nihilus, or be swallowed by the dark.
Go, now! Return to your grey ship and your empty flags. You will have my answer within the hour.
After Alpharius had left, the Lion turned to Captain Arnade.
What did you make of that?
Strange offer.
Very. Do you agree with his assessment of the war?
Arnade hesitated.
It is not my place to...
Your honest view, Captain?
He's right. We will win here. But we will also leave much of our strength in these stars.
The Lion nodded. His eyes flickered briefly across the various tactical hololiths, all buzzing with runes and deployment vectors.
I had a dream last night, Captain Arnade. I dreamed that I was back on Caliban before my father had come, when the deep woods were still alive with horror. I was in the mind of a beast come to slay me. Or perhaps the beast was in my mind and it was the hunter. Now I do not recall ever meeting such a creature in life. And as it ended, it spoke to me.
Arnade listened, a little awkwardly, unsettled by the glimpse, however slight, into the Primarch's inner life.
It, too, called me the First. I cannot have known what it meant then. Ever since, though, the title has been both honor and burden, hung around our necks heavy. Now we have more ghosts emerging from the void that tempt us with future visions of greater politics to come. Always, at every turn, such ghosts have been there, believing they know what I must wish for, or must do, or must be.
The Lion smiled a second time, a little less coldly.
A war master. A first among equals. The ghost is no doubt right. Something like that will surely come. And If we persist in fulfilling our oaths here, we damage our chances of taking it. Every creature of temptation, it seems to me, comes out of the shadows bearing words of truth. That is why they are dangerous. We are used to lies. On a world made of them, only truth imperils the soul.
Then, should we...
The lion looked back towards him, a flicker of dry amusement lingering on his face.
Should we what, Captain?
Should we accept the offer?
The lion sat back in his throne.
The offer changes, but my answer never does.
Totally unscripted, just wanted to share a quick word with you all. I just wanted to give a huge thanks to all of your incredible support with our new long-form content. And to kindly ask if you would consider liking and subscribing to the channel. The channel has really exploded internally with so many new people contributing in various ways. So you would be doing us a colossal, huge, massive favor if you considered just taking a very quick look at our Patreon. And again, thank you all so much. We're trying to get through some of our favourite characters from both 40k and the Horus Heresy, and to that end we'll all be hearing about the Emperor of Mankind very soon. So let us know in the comments whose stories you'd like to see in our new format. See you all next time. Goodbye.